A quick heads up before we start the video, today's project contains a lot of flashing colors, so if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, you may want to skip this one. Viewer discretion is advised. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary, a series where I try to make my own video games. So if game dev videos are your thing, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you don't miss future videos. Now, I've made my love for 90s internet pretty apparent on this channel before, and it's an aesthetic that I've wanted to tackle for a long time. So today we envision a game where a 90s internet page has devolved into chaos as the elements have decided to duke it out for cyberspace supremacy. Now, looking at this scene, there's a lot to take in, so we'll start with the player. The player controls a loaf of bread with WASD and has the ability to shoot balls with left click. The base enemy unit is this eyeball creature, who slowly creeps towards the player. Touching an enemy in general will hurt the player, and obviously taking too much damage will end in a game over. Enemies that are hit by the player's balls will take damage, and once defeated they will award the player points for the elimination, and also towards the player's pyramid count. Once the player's pyramid count reaches max limit, they spawn what else? A pyramid. This pyramid is an orbital ally that'll deal damage to enemies who it comes in contact with. However, each time that it hurts an enemy, they will also take damage, eventually destroying themselves to protect the player. Now that's it for the general combat mechanics, but the player must do more than simply survive and summon pyramids. Once in a while, an umbrella will spawn somewhere in the world. With it comes a countdown timer. Should the timer reach 0, it's game over and the player loses. To prevent this timer from counting down, the player must find the cursed umbrella and quote-unquote capture it by standing within radius of it. I mean, look, we've even got a flashing little circle to show the progress and everything. The goal of the game is to collect however many umbrellas are displayed at the top right of the screen. Or, die trying. And to make things a bit tougher, once the player has eliminated 50 enemies, or has collected more than half of the umbrellas needed to win, a new enemy type will start to spawn. This rabbit head has almost twice the health of an eyeball, but moves noticeably slower. They're also worth twice the amount of pyramid points. But look out, once eliminated, they will spawn 2 enemy eyeballs as one final act of evilness. But as an act of goodness, did you know that if you enjoy the content, supporting me on Patreon is the best way to help me keep making it? Doing so can get you access to exclusive content and downloads, and even early access to the weekly Dev Diary videos before they're released on YouTube. And so that is the gameplay loop in a nutshell. Simplistic in nature because this was definitely about the visuals rather than the gameplay. And on that note, let's talk about the visuals. Obviously, the entire thing was inspired by the 90s era tendencies to overuse moving graphics. But also this was around the time that 3D was finally starting to become more common, and so rotating 3D objects were seemingly everywhere. But the best part of this project are actually the objects themselves. While normally we'd kinda just cheat and use sprite stacking, this time we used actual 3D objects. Seriously, as in fully modeled 3D objects. Like, here's a rabbit's head model in Blender. This project has actually been like years in the making because I've been trying to learn how to do like low poly 3D modeling in my free time, which has been incredibly difficult. And while I still have a lot to learn, it was incredibly fun creating the models for this project. And that kind of explains the lack of any cohesion between objects. It's partly due to not wanting to focus on just one theme, but also personal ability limitations. But even more interesting is that this is actually a 2D project despite the usage of 3D models. Taking a page from Rare and the original Donkey Kong Country, all the 3D models created for this project were rendered in 2D, and then using some directional code would determine which image to use for the quote-unquote direction that an object is facing. It was a lot more work than anticipated, like so much so that it almost delayed the release of this very video. Regardless, I loved this process so much, and it really helped my confidence to see the end results look so dated and chunky. I can't wait to see what else we can do with this knowledge in the future. So those are my thoughts, and I would love to know what you think. Like, for those of you who remember the 90s internet, did this do anything for your nostalgia? And what did you think of my 3D work? Do you have any tips for low poly modeling? Whatever's on your mind, be sure to share it in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like. Well, with that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.